Welcome. In this lesson, or in this series of lessons, we're just going to look at Adobe Animate and how to use Adobe Animate as a drawing tool. As the sequence goes on, we'll then move into the animation, and then finally we'll look at some of the interaction tools. Now, Adobe Animate is a very powerful tool, so we're going to have to take this in bite sizes just to kind of get used to it, and we're going to set you guys some challenges and really learn how to use this inside out. It can get quite frustrating as it is quite complex, but if you stick with it, the end result is absolutely amazing. So for this lesson, we're just going to look at how to open Adobe Animate and save your work. Then we're going to look at how to do some drawings using the line tool and using the selection tools. And then finally, we're going to look at how to export projects as either a PNG file or a JPEG file. Your challenge for this lesson is to draw a simple bridge, and I'll show you some of the basics for that in just a second. So let's move on and let's do something. So firstly, I need you guys to save a project. So if you go to your documents and your computing file, inside of your computing, I would like you to save a file called Adobe Animate Drawing. So I'm going to do mine on my desktop inside of this Digital Student Live Shows folder, but I would definitely like you guys to do it into your computing folder and then save it as Adobe Animate Drawing. Once you have that, this is where we're going to save all of our work. So let's open up Adobe Animate. So if we come down to the bottom left hand side to the Windows Open tool, and we go into our menu. Now mine here is at the top because it's one of my most used icons. So Adobe Animate CC 2018. So we do have the latest version as of date. You won't see yours here, but if you come down to the A section, you will see it down here. And then you can click on that. It does take a few moments to load, so just be patient with it. And once it loads, you will get this screen. So the first thing I'd like you guys to do is click on the HTML5 canvas under the Create New menu. For this whole project, so for the drawing, the animation and the interaction, we will be using the HTML5 canvas. So click on this and it will start your project. Now the first thing I tell all my students is to save your work. The reason I save my work straight away is because Adobe Animate is a powerful tool, and like most powerful tools, it does have the inclination to crash on you sometimes. And if you haven't saved your work, there will be no auto saving. So what you must always do is save your work right at the beginning, and then auto saving should take place. That being said, I would definitely save your work as you go as well. So that's kind of a prerequisite. Save your work often, otherwise crashes happen. Now I've got a little issue with mine, but I'll hopefully get around it. So if we go to the File button, and yeah, there it is. Go to the File button, and then click down to Save. 2 seconds while I get around this issue. Click down to Save. And make sure you go to your Documents Computing folder and then your Adobe Animate Drawing. Remember, we're going to save all of our work inside of this drawing folder. Now what we're going to call this is Bridge. And I'd like you to take note of the file type. This is a .fla file, which means it's a working document. This is the file that you will be able to edit. Now I need to say this is because when we start exporting your work, they will be different files and you won't be able to edit those. But you don't delete the FLA file. This is the one that you will always come back to edit and improve your work. So once you said bridge, you can press the save button. Now you'll notice that here it now says bridge.fla, so we are good to carry on. So let's just go over the interface of Adobe Animate. So in this center aisle here where you've got this white paper, this is what's called the stage. So the stage, anything that's in white is what's seen when you do your exporting, okay? The white is the stage as if you was an actor in a theatre. And the grey area is off stage. And because this is an animating tool or an animation tool, you can use the off stage for some of your drawings and then animate them coming onto the scene or onto the stage and coming off of the stage. It's very powerful, and you can use all of this. To your left hand side you have the drawing tools. To your right hand side you have the properties tools. Now the properties are tool sensitive, so if you change the selected tool or change what you actually click on, this will change with it, and I'll show you that in just a moment. At the very top we have our animation panel and our timeline. We have our layers over to the left hand side of the timeline. For this project, we're just going to use one layer and we're not going to really worry about this. But as time goes on, you will need to use multiple layers, and I'll try and explain that as we go. So the first thing we're going to want to do is click on this offstage area, and we're going to change the size. Now for this project, I want to make it quite a wide project because it's going to be a bridge. The end result will be a bridge. I want to make it quite wide. So I'm going to type 700 in here, and that's 700 pixels. And I'm going to leave the height at 400, or you can make it higher or shorter if you want to. It's not a problem. Once you've done that, you'll notice that the stage gets bigger, and that's great, and we're done here. So once we've done that, we're going to try and use some of the tools. So the tools I want to use are the line tool, which is this one, and the arrow tools. Now the black arrow is when you have to do big selections, and it's the one that I kind of go to the most. However, the white arrow is your kind of sub-selection tool where it allows you to do little selections and little edits, which is really useful. You're going to find yourself using these arrows a lot. So you're going to be switching between the tools. So say for instance you're using the line, you're going to be switching between the tool a lot. So let's draw our first line. Now I've got the line tool selected, and straight away you'll notice that this panel here changed. So if I click back to the arrow, you'll notice that I have the properties for the stage. And then when I click on the line tool, you'll notice I now have the properties for the line. So if I draw now, I'm going to get a yellow line that's very, very thin. And that's great, but yellow is not really the color I want, so let's change it to blue. And let's change the stroke size to something a bit thicker. So now when I draw my second line, you'll notice that it gets a little bit thicker. So now let's do a third line. Let's say we'll go to green this time, and we'll make it even thicker still. And this is really cool, and you don't have to always draw flat lines. You can kind of draw it wherever you want, and then you can let go and you'll get these kind of lines as well. Now if we switch back to the black arrow tool and you select it, it will go this kind of like checkered pattern, and you can then click on it and you can move it around. Once you've finished moving it around, you can then deselect it. If you have this black arrow tool selected also, you can hover, rather than selecting it, you can hover over the edges and you get this kind of right angled shape, which allows you to kind of change the size of the line from both edges, or you can change the way the direction is. Okay, so that's really powerful. Now if I select it again and move it up a little bit and then deselect just by clicking off of it, if I hover over the middle, I get this curved line. And then if I click, hold, drag, you'll notice that I can curve the line. Why don't you guys have a quick go at that now? So pause the video and have a quick go at that. So the next thing I want to show you is that you are able to edit this. So by selecting the line, any line, let's go for this thin one first, you are able to change it. So the first thing I want to change is the color. So let's change this to a horrible purpley color. The second thing I want to do is change the thickness. So all of these parameters are available to us. We can change the thickness, we can change the line. It's really, really powerful. We can also change the style of the line. Now we have these buttons over here, so we have a massive library of brushes. I'm not going to show you that now, but if you want to have a play with that, by all means do. I'm just going to stick with these ones from the drop down menu. And the first one I'm going to do is this one here, which looks like a bit of a line drawing, if you like, loads of random dots. And once again, if I deselect it, I can then curve it just like I did before. And you'll notice as I move my mouse, holding it down and using this curve tool, I can change the way the curve works. Now that might be a bit more obvious on something like this. Let me just show you that now. Look, I can change the way the curve works. It's very, very powerful. So select it again, and let's just change that line maybe to a dotted one. Now the dotted one isn't really showing up, but if I lower the line stroke width, you'll notice the smaller it gets, those dots start to show up, which is great. The final parameter I want to show you is this width. Now because I'm on dotted, I can't actually do anything with that. So let's go back to this one. Actually, let's delete some of these lines. So if you want to delete something, you can select it and press delete, or using the black arrow tool, remember, you can loop select it just by clicking outside of the box and dragging as far as you can until you've got everything inside the box that you want to delete. Let go, and then you can press delete. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you guys is selecting this, and then it's this one here, and the width changes the ends of the parameter. So if I click on this one here, you'll notice that it curves up. Now if I click on this top one, you'll notice that it doesn't actually do what I want it to do. It's a flat edge, but this edge here is kind of still curved. And that's what's called the cap. So if you want to see that in its full glory, you have to change the cap to none, because at the moment the caps are set to rounded. So if you change it to none, it will take on the property of this one here. So if I change it to this one, if I change it to this one, you can do whatever you want, and it gives it a little bit more power. So every time you draw a line now, you'll have this, not that one because it's still set up. So let's just change this. Let's just draw another line. Let's make it slightly thicker. And let's just change this one then. So hopefully now we get this parameter. So every time we draw a line now, we can actually have those caps working. Now I like the rounded cap, so I'm going to leave that one on. I'm just going to go back to my black arrow tool and delete all of these. Now, there is one more thing that I want to show you, and that's called intersecting. So when you intersect something, let's just change this width back to the normal one. So black line, black arrow, change that back to this one, make sure we've got the caps. We can make that slightly smaller. Intersecting is a funny one, because if we have the same line and they overlap like this, when you deselect them and then select them again, what you'll notice is that they cut themselves in half, which can be good, but it can also be quite frustrating. When you do the drawing in just a second, it will be quite frustrating because it won't kind of do what you're expecting it to do. So you need to keep that in mind. When they cross over in this way, the lines will actually kind of detach themselves. So in order to make sure when you move it together, you have to hold down the shift button and click, and then it will allow you to move it as one whole bit, just like so. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that when they cross over, you will get this kind of thing going on here, which can be good, it can be bad. Yeah, sometimes you'll need it, sometimes you won't. Now, that's pretty much all of the tools that I want to show you guys. Now I want to give you a bit of a challenge. So your challenge and your assessment, your hand in, is going to be to create a bridge. Now I've drawn a nice little bridge here. So let me come into my assets, and let's go to my bridge, and let's open this. So what I'd like you guys to do is to draw this bridge. And what you'll notice, and you can use the same colors if you want, or you can make it completely fancy. You can have more arches if you want, or you can customize it to your heart's content. That's absolutely fine. But you will notice that the lines widths are different, the colors are slightly different, you have this curved edges, and so on and so forth. And that's really what I'm looking for. I want you to use all of the techniques that we've done in this particular lesson. So you can pause the video now and you can do the drawing. So once you finish the drawing, I'm just going to do a little drawing for you now of a bridge. It won't be as good as yours, I'm sure of it, but I want to show you the last part of this process, which is to export it as an image. So we're just going to draw a very simple bridge, just like you guys probably should have done, and it could be good, it might not be so good. So let's see, let's just change some of these widths. Now don't forget to press shift, make that smaller, make that 21, so that's quite handy. Actually, let's make it 15. That's quite handy, because if you want an exact size, you can actually come in and you can change the size from here, which is brilliant. And let's just do a curve line. Like I said, this is a bit of a rush job. I'm just going to do it very, very quickly, just so I've got something to export. Let's just change this one as well, because that's a bit too thick. Let's change that to 20. And let's just change the size. There we go. Oh, let's make that a bit smaller. Let's make this 15 as 15 as well. Now I want them to match up, so I'm just going to move them around a little bit. That'll be okay. Let's just curve this again. Let's just do one more for here. They're going to be different styles. Now, one thing I can do, because they're different colors, I can come in and I can change these in color, and I can also say, right, let's make that 5, and now I start to get something that resembles something I should have, hopefully. Okay, and I could spend a lot more time on that and I could make it a lot better, I'm sure of it. But that will do for now, because the next thing I want to show you is how to export your image. So we have this image, we've called it bridge, and remember we saved it as .fla. So let's go file and let's just save it again. Oops, it's doing that thing again. So we've saved it, it's up to date, that's great. Now we want to do an export. So if we go back to file, and then we go down all the way to export, and then across, and the one that I want you to save it as, right, so export and then down, and the one I want you to save it as is this one that says export image. You've got lots of different ways of exporting in Adobe Animate. You can export it as an image. You've got a legacy option, which I would never use now. You've got a movie option, which we'll use once we get to animation. You've also got video and a GIF animation as well. So all of those we will use once we get to the animation side. But for now, I just want you to go down to File, Export, and Export Image. Now, once you press that, just give it a couple of seconds, and it's going to open up this one here. So we have a few options at the top. So this is the export image dialog box, if you like, and it's got our image in the middle, and you have a few options. You can save it as a GIF. GIFs are really good if you want it to be animated. JPEGs are really good if you don't want a transparent background, or you've got a really high quality image going on. And if you are going to do a JPEG, you can change the quality of the size as well. And I would say that JPEG should be no less than 80%. That will maintain this high quality. The one that I like is the PNG 24, and the PNG, if you select the transparency, will give you this transparent background, which is great because if you want to put this into a Word document or a presentation, it won't bring the background with it. Once you've done that and you've set these properties up here, which are very few, you can then just press save. Now we're going to save it into the same folder, so we're going to save it here. So Adobe Animate Drawing. Remember, this should be in your computing folder on your documents, and we're going to call it Bridge again. But notice the extension. The extension is called PNG. Okay, so when I press save, that's done. Now let's go over to my folder, which is this one here, and we go over to the Adobe Animate. What you're going to notice is that you've got two bridges. You've got an Adobe Animate file, which is this FLA, and you've got this PNG, which is the actual image. If you double click on this one here, it will open up Adobe Animate, and you can continue editing and you can save it again, and it's great. If you open up this one here, it will open up the actual image. Now it's the image file that you want. Just give it 2 seconds. Here we go. It's the image file that you actually want, because this one, if you do something nice and you want to send it to your folks or whatever, this is the one they can send. If you send this one to your folks or your friends, they won't actually be able to open it unless they own Adobe Animate. Okay, and even then it could be a bit patchy if they haven't got all the bits and pieces that come with the file. So you do need to make sure you export it and it's a PNG. So when you hand in your work, to get full marks for this assessment, you do need to make sure you hand in the PNG, not the FLA. You will get 0 if you hand in the FLA. Okay, so get your picture done, hand it in, and I'll see you in the next lesson.